Hello and welcome everybody. This is our first live broadcast with Ty and Mason. This is called Empty World. Ty, why don't you introduce everybody to Empty World?
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? My name's Ty. We are the Empty World podcast. We're going to be diving into some fun topics, some not so fun topics. Um, we live in a world that is increasingly filling with stuff and things and overwhelmingness, and everything's in your face, and it leaves us feeling this sense of increasing emptiness. And that's kind of the point of this podcast. We want to dive into that, explore that, figure out what it means, what we can do about it, if there's anything to do about it, and how we exist in this world.
Yeah, existing. Seems hard just to exist at this point nowadays. A lot of things going on in personal lives, a lot of things going on in the world that make us feel small, if you will. And it's very easy to get in that space where you feel small, right? And it doesn't take much in today's world, especially depending on what you're thinking of, whether it be your small part in a huge pond, whether it be your small part in the universe, whether it be, dads, and what we have to go through. It kind of all intermingles. And, um, we had a podcast that we recorded a little earlier on, but we're using this as our first episode where we kind of talked about society as an empty world and how we see society and how people feel empty. And I'm going to want to dig deep into that again on this one because I thought it was such a good topic. But what we were talking about before was a simple fact that the entitlement when people are talking about Gen Z, Gen X, millennials, and the feel of entitlement and why that might be. And we were talking specifically about people's need to feel like to have everything and why that is. Um, so, Ty, I'm going to switch it back to you because I don't want to be the only one talking, but where do you feel that starts?
Um, Gosh, I mean, it's such a broad spectrum, right? And there's so many pieces to it. Um, the first thing I can think of is this TikTok I saw the other day, where this guy described that um, the transfer of wealth from our generation to the generation before us that's happening right now is the greatest transfer of wealth in history. Meaning that every political choice, every law, every decision that's made is designed to make my life harder and my parents' lives easier. Um, and that statistically, people of our generation and even newer generations, they do want to work hard. They do want to do a good job. Statistically, they don't feel a sense of entitlement. Statistically, they just want what was promised. And I know for me personally, I just want what was promised. I was raised that if you go to college, you get a degree, you walk out of college, somebody hands you a job, you work there happily for 40 years, and you retire happy. The white picket
The white
fence,
picket fence.
the wife, the kids, the cars, all that stuff, it just happens for you. And I think that to an extent, the generation before us did experience that. The problem is that's not been my experience at all. I am broke. I've never been more broke. I'm alone. Um, I had therapy 2 hours ago where I just sat there and cried for an hour. Right? I mean, this is real stuff. Um, my 6-year-old is giving me his dollar bills because he knows how broke we are. Um, that's fucking sad, man. That's sad. And what do we do about it? The truth is, we're small. What do I do about it? Not a goddamn thing. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that definitely is rough. And the truth of the matter is, that's not one individual. That's not you. That is the vast majority of society, and that's where this need comes in and this feeling of emptiness because we're not. whether it be millennial or what's the new one they're calling them? Are they Gen Z, Gen X?
Gen
Like
Z.
Gen Z, yeah. We're going up in a world where it's harder and harder, right? And we kind of look at statistically, we can say maybe pills didn't exist back when our parents were born, right? But we're looking at a society where more and more people, like you said therapy, right? I go to therapy, right? I when I try to think about people in my life and who goes to therapy, quite a bit, right? And it's a really big lucrative business to be in therapy. And it's the more and more people need it. Like I'm trying to think of all the people that I know that are medicated in some way, shape, or form, whether it be for anxiety, depression, bipolar, PTSD. And these are things that keep increasing rapidly, right? Because there there's such a high expectation for like everybody that's new, like look what we did when we were growing up, and it was like cool, you did it. And like this is the world that was created, this is what we have to deal with. Not saying that it's not partly our fault, right? But it's saying that we're living in a time that is so stressful. Where's that feeling of self entitlement coming from, right? And maybe it's not self entitlement, but it's more along the lines of, um, I feel that I deserve this because when I was going to school, right, or I was going to a college and I was paying for this degree that I'm going to be paying off for the rest of my life. I went in there with this idea, this promise, that I was going to have a good job, but here I am, yelling at McDonald's saying, like I want my $16 an hour. And that's because we're pushed into this kind of bubble where, I don't remember, it was like 10 years ago, I worked for this company and we used to go to this fast food restaurant all the time. I forget what fast food restaurant it was, but one of the guys who worked there went to school to be a doctor, a brain surgeon. And he went to school, he's paying off his bills, working for this fast food restaurant, and a brain surgeon, and he's working in fast food, right? And was that him that put himself there? I mean, you're a brain surgeon, probably not, but what put you there is probably that expectation was lost, right? And he wasn't able to land a job despite going to college, right?
Totally, totally. Yeah, it's like we drank the Kool-Aid, we trusted you, and now we're in a position where it almost feels like we can't even help ourselves out of it, right?
Right, and it doesn't make it easier that now that we have TikTok, we have YouTube, which we're streaming on now. It's really big. We have Twitter, and every single day we see these issues, these problems, and as a part of that society, you feel like like not only does it stress you out more and make you feel empty because you're seeing all these things going on in the world that you really can't control, but it's more visible to you nowadays. Whereas in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have these platforms. It wasn't visible. So more and more people are getting stressed out, and they're seeing people that may get certain things that they're not getting, and it really brings in that self feeling of empty, because they're seeing what they don't have or what's going on in the world, or in some cases they see how bad some people have it, and maybe not people nowadays. But that's where I think that really big feeling of empty comes in. Is now you can see the world as a whole, right? You can see every part of it. You can look up statistics of there are this many people in the world, and this many people have so much money, but you look at yourself and it's like, well, I'm not there, right? But then you feel bad about it, but the reality is there's just that many people and you're just connected to all of it. Whereas in previous generations, they didn't see that. You had a house, you were doing good, right? Like I have a house now, I feel I'm doing good. You have your own house, right? Like you said, you have some issues, but you have a house, right? So I mean, but they didn't see the other end of the coin. Like, they didn't have a statistic saying, okay, well, this many people were homeless, right? And then feel that they need to do something about it or get these people off the street. We didn't have statistics back
Right. And
30
that's the
years
problem
ago.
too, right? Like, not only are we just absolutely inundated with everything that's happening in the world, there's also a societal expectation that we care about everything that's happening in the world, right? And it's not sometimes, like I get overwhelmed with stuff, right? Uh, you know, Political stuff, genocide, war, famine, all the stuff. It's a lot. And I'm not saying I don't care, but sometimes it is so exhausting to just know that I'm expected to have a personal stance on everything all the time. I mean, try saying, I know that there's a war happening, but I don't care because I need to pay for my electricity, right? That's not good enough. I need to figure out how to pay for my electricity and care about everything that's happening everywhere all the time, and it's exhausting.
Right. I mean, I'm not political. I'll be straight up. Like, I don't watch debates. I don't vote. I'm sorry, anybody who's watching. I don't. The reason being is because it a lot of the things you hear is a lie, and it's not because maybe that person wants to lie. Maybe they truly have those ideals, but they're going to tell you what they want to hear, right? And it's filling a void, right? And when that person or whomever gets into office or Congress or a House representative, like, I don't feel like I have a place in that world. Like, it's empty because whatever I vote for, is that actually going to happen? Right. So it's kind of like for our troops, like everybody that goes to fight for us, I love you to death. Like, I
Mhm.
appreciate you fighting for our freedom. I appreciate everything like that. But I would like to know the specifics on why you're actually out there in the first place, but we don't. And sometimes they don't, right? Like they go over there, they work their butts off to get PTSD. They're scarred for life, and they should know they should not feel empty and in the dark about why they're going there. Is this some political gain, right? And that, again, that just feeds into this empty feeling of everything that we're doing, because like while you see all these big things, really you don't really get to see the specifics or the handle on it, right? You just get to see high level, and that kind of drops you down a notch.
Totally. And I think that something else I always have to remind myself too is that I'm like you, I'm not super political. I did vote, so if you're gonna hate anybody, hate that guy, not me. But I live in a very conservative area, and I wouldn't consider myself super conservative, right? Um, and it's very easy for me to get lost in that fight, right? That bickering, that, well, why would you vote for so and so when I think we should vote for so and so? When in reality, uh, I have a lot more in common with my neighbor than I do with even the most closely political aligned politician to me ever, right? Me and my conservative next door neighbor probably have a lot more in common than I do with our president, right? Despite political views. It's not about me versus him, it's about us versus them sometimes, and it shouldn't be that way. We get stuck in that, right? And I think you kind of hinted at it, right? A lot of what we hear is not true, right? A lot of what we hear may very well just be a narrative, a story, a fabrication. And I don't subscribe to most conspiracy theories. I
Yeah, no.
I, I just don't really know enough, right? I mean, again, I'm more focused on making sure I get myself out of bed and don't not most days, So for me to educate myself around that stuff is very challenging. Um, but I do know that the more time I spend arguing with my next door neighbor, that's less time that I'm spending focusing on what matters, which some days is getting out of bed, some days it's voting, some days it's doing a podcast, even if nobody's watching, some day,
Hey, there
whatever,
was.
whatever I
I'm
feel.
watching the number. I'm watching the number. We are getting. So I mean, yeah, I definitely understand, and like Ty, I see you doing things like, despite what you may say, um, you're always doing something creative with your time, right? Whether it be art or whether it be a book, which I love to talk about. Whether it be, there's so many things that you put your heart into, right? And then it's not, maybe it's to keep yourself busy, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're trying to do something that brings joy to others, and not just yourself. I mean, yourself is definitely included. But like Ty released a book, and he's welcome to talk about it. But um, so, but there we go. Yeah, it's okay to feel mad, and I'll let him talk about it in a minute. Um, but he wrote this book, and the more I thought about his book and the kind of like the meaning behind it, like it's okay, and it's like society is saying it's not right, and it's a problem. Like your kid is that's a problem with the dad, the parent, and like I keep thinking about the title of your book and the contents within, and it is okay to be mad. It really is, right? Like, why can't you be? Well, why in a world that we're in can you not be mad, right? I'm mad that we're at war, right? Like I'm mad that we have people bickering on stage on how to make America better. Like, shouldn't we have that figured out by now? We've been around for how long? So it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be depressed in this world. But you showed us the book, right? It's okay to be mad. It's targeted towards kids, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you had a thought when you made that book for your kids, right? Because I'm specifically, I think it was the idea derived from your kids and then you brought to the world, right? So, why don't you talk to me about that? Like, what is it really, the meat and potatoes behind that book?
Um, it serves a few purposes. One, I am 33 years old and I go to therapy to learn how to manage my emotions. And sometimes I sit and I think to myself, if I can't manage my emotions, then why, like, in what world would I expect my 6-year-old to manage his emotions? You know, I spend so much time, and I think we do. I think it's a trend. I don't think it's a unique thing to me, right? But as a parent, I spend so much time just trying to feed my children into the structure of society. Sit down, shut up, learn, go be a good little worker for society. When in my mind, I know that's not right. I feel in my heart that that's not right, but that's how we are taught to do things, right? So
Right.
for me, it was about breaking out of my own mental cycle of, my kid's crying, he's melting down. I have a choice. I either say, stop crying, let's go deal with this, or I say, hey, it's okay to cry. I cry all the time, right? And I do. I mean, that wasn't a joke. I was crying an hour ago. It is what it is. Um, I've learned, and this isn't necessarily in the book because this is a little bit more complex for the children, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
um, I do not have to align my actions with my thoughts, right? And to give you an example, um, I can be really mad if somebody cuts me off on the freeway,
Yeah.
really mad, and
Mhm.
that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling that emotion. Um, Now, if I ram into the back of his car, run him off the road, and try to kill him, there's going to be a problem, right? It's
Yeah.
the actions that are the problem.
Correct.
But I think too often what we do as a parent, as an individual, as a society, we try and connect our emotions and our actions, and we try to say, okay, these need to be in alignment for us to be at peace. Um, and I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, but I know in 33 years, I still get mad when people cut me off, right? I still get irritated when people don't do what I want them to do. The difference is I can stop and I can say, all right, it's okay to be mad, but I'm just going to keep driving. It's okay to be frustrated, but I'm just going to be patient. I'm just going to be kind. I'm just going to be loving. And it's all an exercise in practice, right? This isn't something I just woke up one day and was like, oh, cool, I do this now, right?
Right.
I still flip people off. I still cuss at my kids. I still yell, right? Like it is a practice and it sucks. But the point of the book was to introduce emotions to my kids and maybe some other kids in the world, in a way that begins to begins the conversation around our emotions and how it's okay to feel them, all of them, the good and the bad.
Okay, show it again so everybody can see it. It's
Yeah.
on Amazon. Um, it's okay to
Yes.
feel mad by Ty. It's on Amazon. Truly, I think it's something that you should think of definitely picking up. Um, so I definitely understand that, right? And I think the what you're kind of like it's okay, right? And when you first start driving, right, it's not an okay feeling, right? Like anything that we start. Um, and then over time, I think it's wisdom that truly gets to, like, okay, I know if I get mad at this, right? Like, it's really not going to do anything for me. Am I going to be fulfilled, right? Or am I just going to feel like I just wasted my time, right? And it kind of brings in that, like, you want to feel empty about it. Like, man, that wasn't productive. I did that for no reason. Like, why did I get mad? I just wasted 30 minutes of my life, like throwing things around my room because this didn't go my way, right? But the older we get, and maybe that's the problem, right? Is it has to be as the older you get, these learn these things, um, and they're really not taught to you in like a school setting. It's kind of like you don't learn taxes in school, right? And it's like a huge part of your life. But you're really taught that you're not really taught about emotions and what's okay. You get sent to a principal's office, right? You get detention, right? Like, but you don't understand why and why it was okay to feel that emotion. And that's why we go to therapists, is for them to tell us it's okay, right? But they're trained in their bubble to kind of like, okay, like I understand how he's feeling. This is how we can navigate it, but it might not be a real world solution, right? It's not, it's an educated it's an educated, I don't want to say guess, but it's an educated thought, that could have been regurgitated 20 times, right? Maybe not. It depends on the therapist. But it's a regurgitated thought, right? And I think the other half comes from that and then utilizing that into experience. Um, which you talked about, and I think that's a great portion of your book, is being able to provide what you learn through your experience and as you continue to grow. And I'm sure this is probably one of continued books, maybe depending on how this one does, but I would love to see some on other emotions. And like, I don't know, this is a really goofy movie, and I don't know if you've seen it with your kids, but have you ever seen Inside Out?
I'm pretty sure I saw the first one. There's a second one out now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it made like a
Yeah.
billion. Yeah, like,
Mhm.
but it's like all the triggering of emotions and like when one's allowed in and one's not, right? And like how people are feeling. And me and my wife actually love this for our kids because it's like it shows anxiety, like the second one, anyways. It shows anxiety mixed with sadness, mixed with happy, depression, and like how kids are growing up with these things. And of course, it always has a happy ending, but like it just shows like them on the control panel, and there's really no like rhyme or reason why it's going on inside your head, which is why I think it's just like a very educational but fun way to show, right? So I love the idea of the book, and when you like you posted, I was like, wow, like Ty did it. Like he made this book, and like I was really excited for you, and excited for myself that you made a book about it's okay to be mad, because I've been taught for so long that it's not okay. I'm on a medication for mood levels, right? And it's not that I'm consistently really down, or maybe it is like sometimes I have a really big down moment and then I go on a high roller coaster moment, right? And this kind of keeps me mid, but like, is there a point where it's okay to go down? It's okay to go up, right? We don't have to stay mid. Like, it's okay to get mad about some things, right? Maybe not to an extreme level, but that's kind of like that's the reason why I love your book so much. Like, it's okay. Just we need to know how to handle it.
And that's the biggest difference, right? It's what actions do we take as a result of these emotions. I know for me personally, usually the best action for me to take is no action, do nothing, right? Be mad, be sad, be angry. But doing nothing is not fulfilling, and doing nothing is not something we're taught in society. If you're doing nothing, you have no worth, right? And we could dive into men's mental health. It's been on my mind, and obviously that's a whole can of worms we could dive deep into. But the idea that my value is derived from what I provide for others. If I'm not making money, I don't have value. If I'm not creating content, I don't have value. If I'm not actively enriching or adding something to society, I don't have value. And it's just not true, right? Um, I should be allowed to have value just based on who I am as a human. Um, and I want to believe that, but it's so hard to deprogram yourself after years and years of being taught otherwise by society.
And I think that's great because I think you add value, right? There's a reason why I'm doing a podcast with you because I feel you have value and I feel that you're wise. We work together. I know you're wise. Like I kind of know, at least back then, I knew all your like how you thought and your emotions back then. Which probably, I mean, it's been a while, so you've progressed in your life. You've had kids, right?
I was a
I've
lot happier
seen you
back
with your
then, believe
kids.
it or
Yeah,
not.
I've seen you with your kids, and you're great with your kids, by the way. Um, but I don't know that really it really brings in that I mean that empty where people feel like they just need to know that it's okay, right? They need to know, like you said, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to feel like you don't have it all, right? Because we're never gonna have it all, right? Like I was watching this. It was funny. Me and my wife were watching this game show, right? And they were like making a big deal about like, oh, I could win $100,000, it could change my life. It's like, no, you're being told to say that. Because you make $100,000, like, okay, I got $100,000. I didn't have that before, but is that $100,000 really gonna do anything for you? Like, so wait, you could pay part of your house off, which is probably 700,000, right? Or at least nowadays, we probably got our houses cheaper when we bought them before the boom. Or like a car is $60,000, right? Or like really, how far does $100,000 get you? Like on a game show, it should be 5 million because it's not life changing anymore unless it's I don't know, like at least a mil, and even then, that mil can be gone in uh like a year because you're paying off all the debt, like getting a car, maybe college for your kids. Like it's not really a life-changing thing anymore.
No, and not always even positive, even if it is, right? I mean, then you can dive into the idea that, as a society, we're generally so inexperienced with money. We're so used to poverty that, you give a lottery ticket winner $500,000, $1 million, $500 million, they're bankrupt within 2 years and, homeless. And I mean, it's so common, right? We're not only are we not allowed to have money, like, I mean, God, it's so obvious, right? They don't teach us how to have money because they know we're not going to have it.
It, maybe, yeah, right. We always have this talk, like me and my wife, every year when tax season hits. It's like because she works in finances, so every year this hits, right? And I do it, I use TurboTax. It's pretty easy. It takes you through the steps. If you sell a home or something, it's a lot harder, so you get help. But they don't teach that, right? And it is a huge thing in your life to know about taxes, like because you pay tax on everything, right? But we don't know any of that, right? And so you're set up for like again like we keep talking about like an empty because you're going to feel like you don't know it, right? And it's consistent, right? There like you start a new job, right? Like you have a degree, you have a bachelor's degree, right? Like you learned all this stuff. Maybe a therapist learned all this stuff, but even a doctor, you learned all of this stuff. But when you get into the field, it's you don't know it all, right? You're going to be learning for the next 20 years, right? So you're always going to feel that there is this void that needs to be filled because it is never filled up by anything at all. Sometimes there's fulfillment, like you get a reward, right? Or um like you get a good job, right? Or like we were number one, tie in the West in our department, right? Or something like that, right? And you get this feeling of, oh yay, but what did that affect in your life, right? Did it make your life better, right?
No, not at all, right? It never does.
And sometimes that's okay. Like I have a job where I feel rewarded all the time, and that's great. Like what I like to be like I watch all these video now. You got TikTok. Uh, you see all of these I don't know what they call they talk about space and like uh it's like string theory and like all these really things that sound super cool, and it's like, man, I would love to study that, but at the same time it's like my brain doesn't have that capacity to be able to do anything like that. Like I can be interested in here, but everybody is different on how they explain it, right? So I can't have my own thought about it. It has to be based on um somebody else's theory, right? So it all comes back to that you almost don't have a mind for your own because you're always having to listen to somebody else's experience. You're always having to listen to somebody else's theory. You're always having to listen to somebody else's political stance to try to understand where to be, right? So you're you're not being given a real chance. And I think this is a problem right now with millennials or Gen Z, whatever. But again, you're not really being given the chance to learn. You're just thrown into it, and you're being told this is right or wrong.
Totally. It makes me think of this idea that I struggle with where I keep waiting for the day where I feel like a real adult. I'm 33 years old and I'm like, I just feel like a kid pretending, right? A kid just trying to make it up as I go along. And um, ask your parents about that. They may not be able to relate. I asked my mom, hey, at what age did you feel like an adult? She's like, I don't know, 18, like when I was an adult, that they were given the tools to succeed and then said, go succeed, right? And I feel like for me, I was given a part of the puzzle, and then I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life trying to collect the rest of the pieces, and like you said, I mean, it goes back to like the therapist with the very intellectual knowledge, right? Like my therapist has some very good ideas, like happiness comes from within. I've got to find the things I'm interested in and passionate about, and I just want to scream like, I hear you, I understand that stuff, but when I wake up at 9 in the morning and tears are streaming from my face and I don't know why, and I don't even know how to get up and do the dishes, I'm not going to go find a hobby. I'm not going to find what I'm passionate about. I'm not going to feel intrinsically satisfied with myself. I'm just going to feel empty. And what do I do about that? And the problem is it's work. It's all work.
Yeah,
And I don't have space for it.
it's true. I mean, there was a point where I had too many hobbies, right? And it wasn't healthy because hobbies aren't cheap, right? Like you can't have a hobby and it be free. Like, okay, drawing might be free. You can argue. But then if you draw, you have to buy art supplies, right? You have to buy like anybody, like I've seen some really good people, like you need these really fancy pencils to do this really detailed work. But like it's not free. You have to buy the canvas. You have to buy the art supplies, right? You have to dedicate time, which isn't free, right? Because every moment it costs money, right? Um, so hobbies are even expensive. You can't just say I'm going to get a hobby, right? Like you stream on Twitch, right? Hand of Fate, follow him. But you stream on Twitch. But that's a hobby. It's not free because you have a headset, you have keyboards, you have games that you have to pay for, you have internet, which isn't cheap, right? So then you have to figure out how to make all that work. And streaming itself is free, but the idea behind it is expensive, right? Like even our setup that we got here, like like I have audio programs, like I have a mic, like I have all these things to make this work. Like sure, I may not need it all, but like it while it's a hobby, it gives you a sense of like, man, I needed to do all this. It took time, right? It took, like my stream deck, like it took some things to make it work. And luckily I had it because I stream myself. But hobbies aren't cheap. And then motivating yourself to find a particular hobby and then say, I want to spend time, I want to devote money, right? And then it comes back to, do I have the money? Right. And most cases, some of the hobbies that you really want to do are expensive. Like, I suck at drawing. I'd love to get better, take classes. I'd love to do tattoos. Is that realistic for me? Never. Like, I'll never be at that point to where I can do that because I don't have the time, the money, the experience, and the experience for that. And I'm sure is very long and drawn out, even if you know how to draw. So yeah, it's so time consuming, and it can make you feel empty, like you said, getting out of bed because it's like you want to go do a hobby, right? But do you have the time, right? Like, you wake up in the morning and you say, like you're trying to get out of bed and you're like, what do I want to accomplish today? Can I accomplish that today? Um, is that going to cost me something, which is going to make me feel something different because maybe I can't. Um, and so it all comes back to that little void that's there. And I think everybody can feel or relate. Some of us it's harder than others, right? Because I do have deep depression, and that's not my fault. It's just something that I've grew up with because I have OCD, and then over time it gets worse. But you know, it's hard to get out of that slump because you need an outlet, but getting that outlet is the problem, and finding it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we live in a society where we're not even equipped or established enough to have the time, right? Like, how many people do you know that are working in a job that they are passionate about, that they actually like, they grew up wanting to be this and they are now this, right? Uh, God, if money and time were no object, I would be the happiest person on the planet, right? I could dive into all these crazy, I mean, anything, right? Like, I want to do woodworking. I want to write more books. I want to do glass blowing. I want to skydive, like all these different things, right? And it's like, okay, but who's going to wash my dishes, right? Who's going to mow
Right.
my grass? Who's going to pay the bills? Because it also has to be me. If it's not me, nobody else is going to do it, right? So,
Right.
my therapist said, take it easy today. Have a relaxing day. Feel your emotions and just do nothing. Veg out. And I'm just like, I love that. I love that for the me that exists tomorrow that has to do twice as much work because I did nothing today. Right? It's always a game of catch up, and there's no room for passion. There's no room for fun. There's no room for. I mean, I'm convinced sometimes there's no room for happiness. You know, I
Yeah.
really am.
It it definitely makes you feel that way for sure, and because there's a constant struggle. Is it going to be enough today? Did I do enough? Right? And I think there's people, me and you maybe feel better, worse than some people, but like, did I do enough today to say that I've been successful, or just say, go to sleep at night going happy, going, today was a really good day, right? And uh, with everything that's going on, it's like, no, like, and or like I'll pull up Facebook and you'll see these videos and you're like, and it kind of like pushes you down a step, like, right, like this person did this amazing thing today, but like, what did I do? Like, I feel like I did a lot, but apparently I didn't, and I try to tell myself that's okay because I'm different. I'm not, Susie Q from the internet, right? So it's okay for me to feel that I didn't do enough, right? Like, but at the end of the day, like, it needs to be, um, I need to be satisfied with what I accomplished on my own, right? Like, I know at my job, I do a good job, right? Like, so I can feel a sense of, um, like, I can feel good about myself saying that at least in my control of what I had today, I did an okay job. I did a good job, right? Um, but then there's the flip side of that where you have your weekend, right? You have your time off, right? And or you get off work and then you have your times with your kid, right? And it's like I would love to take my kids to, like Disneyland, like, like every 4 months, 3 months, like I'd love to take them to like all these events that they have for these kids, but like where's the time to plan? Where's the money to get it? Where's, like they have friends, like how do we, figure that out, and there's just so much, and and it always is, and I feel like it'll always be a lot, whereas in before it was like, like, oh, go outside, scrape your leg, like when we were kids, that's what it was, run down the street, like 2 miles away from your home on your skateboard or your bike and go play with your friend. Now it's like, oh, you're gonna get abducted. Like, don't do that. Right. So there's a lot more into it, and there's a lot more worry. Right. And I think we need to find a way to get past that as a society, but how do you really get past that in a connected world? Right. And when you see it, because like I can't tell you, like I'm sure in your neighborhood, at least when I lived in your neighborhood, they had a Facebook just for your neighborhood, right? And so you see like missing person reports, or dogs have been taken from somebody's backyard, or it's like, geez, I live here, right? And it's like my kids are here, right? And maybe like I don't want to say like you don't want to know that, because obviously you want to know if it's going on in your neighborhood, but does this contribute, right? Because people can see like, oh, it's happening, but nothing's being done, right? So, but it's kind of connected in that way. It makes you feel small, like you can't do anything about it.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, between feeling powerless to do anything about changing anything bigger than ourselves, right? Our neighborhood, our city, our state, our country, our world, right? Um, how do we even begin to care when we don't even have the power to change ourselves? When I can't even, I mean, like, yeah, I struggle from depression, right? I don't choose that. I don't want that, you know? I spent 30 minutes in therapy just saying, I want to be happy. I just want to be happy. Is that so much to ask? I just want to be happy. If I don't even have the power to make myself happy, I don't even have the power to change my own emotions, um, then how am I ever in this world going to make a difference for somebody else? Right. And I mean, I wish that this was a podcast where I gave the answers,
Right.
but it's at least not yet because I don't have them. I don't
Yeah.
have it, man. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. As a dad, and I mean, you made the book, so I know you feel the same way. And it's like, we obviously don't push that on our kids because we want them to have like the best life ever. Right. And like I tell my kids like every day, like my daughter has anxiety like me, right? I can tell like, she thinks about herself like a lot, like, or her impact, and she gets really emotional when she feels a certain way. And I grew up like that. I'm like that now, right? And it's okay to feel that way, right? And I'm, as a dad, because I go through these things, I understand exactly what she's feeling. And it's like, okay, close your eyes, breathe, count to five, right? Like it's a thing now that we do together, like, okay, take the deep breath, count. We get to five. Like when she gets mad, she comes to me and she wants to do it. She doesn't do it by herself, and I think that's okay, right? Because it's what she's growing up in. It's really hard to grow up in these things, especially in school, whatever it be, bullies, whatever they bring everything that's in our society to school, and it's crazy. But I at least feel proud of the fact that I can do that for my kid because I've been through it. Am I perfect? No, but at least I have, a little bit of wisdom at the age of 36. At least I have a little bit that I can provide to make their life a little bit better. And I would think that if our parents, right, if they were to have to deal with that kind of child at this type of age, would they be able to do it? But are we more readily equipped because of what we had to grow up with moving into their world, right? And I think we are, because we grew up in the boom of digital age, and we at least know how to slightly handle that, that path. Are we perfect with it? No, we have therapy, pills, medical, whatever the case may be, but we're a little bit more equipped for it. And again, it goes back to is our kids are not going to know that small feeling for a while, right? Because their world's just like school, video games, tablets, but as they grow up, I mean, it's probably going to be a bigger gap than us because it's going to be, like we think about to where parents had black and white TV to where we are at now, right? Like now we're on 8K, what are our kids going to have when they grow up, right? And it's going to be even, bigger. And there's going to be something bigger that you're going to need to fill. And it's not going to get smaller ever. Like houses are going to keep going up, gas is going to keep going up. Like when you get an electrical car, like the prices of that are going to go up because there's a no gas cars, right? So it's never going to end, right?
It's not going to end, at least not in our lifetime, right? Or if it does end, it will end in a catastrophic way, right? Which is another real
Yellowstone
possibility.
blowing up, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like I wish that, like as connected as we are, with the world, and I really feel like there was something better that or productive, that we could all do as a society. And that's not just America, right? Like, I love my country, I'm Mother Brave, but we look across the world and some people do things really well, right? And we're not the best at everything, right? But like if we were to share the wealth of knowledge across an entire world, right? What would that look like? Right? Like, would there be a sense of emptiness, right? Because in some countries, maybe they don't have that big of a statistic, right? But we see ours and we're like, wow, that's bad, right? But if we were to come together as a whole, right, what would that look like, right? What if we were more accepting of other people's science, right? Cures, right? You know, there wouldn't be a void uh, in this world if we all work together. But nobody ever finds a way to work together, even in our own country, in our jobs, in our hobbies, right? Like everybody has to have their own opinion. You post an art on Facebook, right? Like a piece of your art. People can't just say good job. Like you put your effort into that good job. They have to have an opinion and criticize it, right? You can't just be good at something. It's like a movie comes out and everybody bashes it. And it's like, well, that it might not have been good to you, but people still liked it. Like it was that person still worked really hard on that, right? And it's like just be happy that that person was able to do that for in their lifetime. Like it was probably a dream, right? They didn't think they'd be there. So why can't everybody come together just to make something better?
totally. And I think it's important to keep it in perspective too. Like, it's easy for me to take a snapshot of where we are at as a society, and think, wow, we really fucked this up. Like we were better before, and now we are worse. But I think if you look over any considerable length of time, right, and this is again just me trying to convince myself that we're not all doomed, um, things generally get better, right? Are we always trying to play catch up? Absolutely, right? Are we always as a species trying to catch up with what we probably know should be happening anyway? Sure. Are our politicians always behind the eight ball? Are our parents not doing the things we wish they would have done? Are we not doing the things we wish we would do for our kids? Yes, right. But um, you go back to sticks and stones to now, we are certainly in a better position, right? You go back 100 years to now, we are certainly in a better position. Even 20 years, 10 years, right? Now, 6 months or a year, maybe not, right? But over any considerable length of time, things get better, never worse, right? And then something I personally try to do is I really, really try to convince myself that that principle can apply to my individual personal life as well. If I look back to my childhood and go from then to now over any considerable length of time, Have I been through breakups? Am I going through a divorce? Have I lost jobs? Have I lost loved ones? Yes, bad shit happens, right? But I was born a drooling, crying, helpless baby, and I am not that anymore. And if that very simple fact exists, then I have evidence that my life gets better, never worse. And so there's no reason to think, based on evidence, that my life won't continue to get better. And us as a society won't continue to get better. That's the hope, anyway.
Yeah, as long as you have the correct mindset, and I think we need to come together as a whole to have that, right? And uh, when that will be, we don't know, right? Like you said, that might not be in our lifetime. Hopefully for our kids, right? We would hope, right, that that would be in their lifetime, right? And there's a lot of promises and dreams, right? And we hope that those dreams can succeed, right? um like like you hope your kid can be a doctor, right? Like that'd be cool, right? But are you gonna spend $200,000 and be broke the rest of your life even though you're a doctor? Like doesn't sound too appealing, right? Like I didn't go to college. We were talking about before, about your dream job, right? When I was in school, I went to advanced autos. It was like 3 hours a day. I wanted to be a mechanic, right? Um, am I doing anything remotely close to that? No, I'm not. I deal with, I'm an operations person for a company, and I'm actually fulfilled with that position. But was that my dream when I was younger? No, it wasn't. And like, yeah, you think back, like all the people that wanted to be a mechanic that was my age, and it was a lot because it was during like the Fast and the Furious movies, right? So everybody wanted to be a mechanic, right? But now I don't like my car breaks. I don't even fix it. I take it somewhere, right? Like it doesn't fill me up to be able to do that anymore. Like I'd rather just take it to somebody else and forget about the worry, because it's one less thing that I have to worry about. Right. Well, it still costs money and I have to worry about the cost, but at least I'm not having to worry about fixing it. It's under warranty. There's this sense of alleviating the worry to somebody else, right? And then you got a warranty, so you don't have to worry, even though we know most warranties don't work anyways. But yeah, it's just my point is we're allowed to pass the buck a lot. And maybe like 20 years ago, you really weren't able to really pass it off that much, right? Like mechanics weren't as big as they were back then. Like everybody worked on their own cars, everybody changed their own oil. um but we don't do that nowadays, right? Like there's always somebody for something, right? And maybe that's the issue, but I think that's also a good thing, is because it creates more jobs or hobbies for people. You can see people on Facebook trying to help each other out, right? And then like maybe that's a good thing that we have that now. But at the same time, we don't grow up with those life experiences anymore. So will my kid ever know how to change their own oil if they need to, right? Will my kids know how to do their taxes? Maybe, because I'll teach them, right? But will they know, right? Well, what knowledge are they going to gain throughout the course of their life that um, we got versus our parents got versus versus everything? So I really hope that that void closes over time. My dog likes to bark. I hope that void closes over time, but I mean, only time will tell.
And that's the truth, man. Time, and it's such a pain, right? How many of our problems are either solved or never even happen because we gave it time, right? Like I can sit here and worry about 100 different things that might happen. 99 of them probably won't. I just got to give it time. But time is painful. Time is slow, and time is not always something I'm willing to give, or even have the mental strength to give. I love that you have the ability to look very holistically at, long term, and I think that's huge, right? But I also think that, at least for me personally, there's no way in hell I can begin to tackle any holistic issues, any global issues, any. I mean, I can't fix my kids. I can't even fix myself, right?
Right.
I can't worry about whether my kids are going to be able to do taxes. I can barely do taxes. I don't even have
Yeah.
money to file taxes. Like it's it's almost. I mean, it's depressing, right? It's depressing how small I have to look as a person just to start to fix some of the things that society has caused, or I have caused, or other people have caused.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm
What
33 years old, and I'm trying to figure out how to make sure that the HOA doesn't find me for my weeds in the front yard. Right?
right.
Like that is not where I thought I'd be at 33.
Right. And like I can talk as big as I want, but at the end of the day, like what impact have I made on society? And the real answer is it's very small, if anything, because it's for my family, right? Or it's for the company I'm working for, right? Or so you can never say that truly like it was all done for you because like let's say I go to a baseball game, right? It isn't just about me because I'm taking somebody else with me, right? So it's never just you, right? So it it makes it hard. My kids are going to have the best life with me as their father, right? And they could have a very good life, just like your kids. They have a great father, but are we going to be able to give them all those little pieces that make it the best? And we're not set up for that sometimes. And like I like to think, just like your book, like being mad is okay. Um, I like to think that, like not having money sometimes, like that's okay, especially in today's society. Like it's not the best, right? It never feels good not to have money, right? It never feels good to say, oh, the HOA is trying to charge me $50 because I have like one dandelion sticking up in my front yard, right? I had mine say that my rocks were the wrong color. It's like I lived here for 5 years. How is it the wrong color? Like doesn't make sense to me. But you have to, like I can't control a thing, and they upset me, right? And again, it's okay to be mad, but like I don't have the perfect world. What I do is that I have a view of what I would like to see, right? And like I'd like to see the world come together, and um, can I make that happen? No, 100% I can't. Like I can have this view in my mind of like this would make the world so amazing, right? And the reality is, will it ever be that amazing? No. And um that's okay. That's fine because I get it. It can't. It's too diverse, right? So that's okay. And I don't mind that, but I don't like I wake up with my depression and it's like I can't do anything about that, right? And I know I'm not gonna feel good that day, and it's what you hope for is the next day. And you say you talked about time, right? And it moves slow, but at the same time, we live until what in today's society they can say like 100 because of medication if you can afford it. um, but I mean, really, you live like let's say on average 60 to 80, right? And you're 33, I'm 36, right? Wow, like you really look back and it's like in the last 33 years, right, of my life, this is what happened, right? And you can say it could be almost half over, right? And the reality is we don't like to think that way. We want to live till 80, 90, or I don't want to live till 100 because I don't want to be that person in a wheelchair being taken everywhere. But um, it's like it did go by kind of quick, and then like, now that we kind of have these thoughts, it feels like it's going a little bit slower. But 10 years from now, when your kids are like daddy, I want to take your car to the, or you're not going to say daddy at that point, they're probably going to say pops, but they're going to say, like, I'm going to borrow your car and go somewhere to hang out with my friends, right? And it's like, where did that time go? Right? Like, man, like, we were worried about all these things, and it's like all these background things happen so fast, but in our mind, it happened really slow, right? In a blink of an eye, it's there. Like I look back when I was like 15. I'm still embarrassed by things I did in school, and that was like 15 years ago. And to think that that was that long ago, and I'm still embarrassed, it feels like it was just yesterday.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, it's like when time is supposed to be working to our advantage, our brains make it take as long as humanly possible, right? But when time's working against us, man, it happens like that. Because you're dead on, dude. Where I got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. What?
Yeah,
How?
right.
Where? How? And I mean, that could be a whole other topic, right? How does that feed into my mental health and my mental well-being? I can tell you it feeds into it in a very negative way. I view my life as a parent as a long, slow loss, right? When my kid starts walking instead of crawling, that's not happy for me, right? That is a moment I'll never get back. And when they started saying dad instead of daddy, that's not happy for me. That's a moment I'll never get back.
Oh my
And I
god,
know
I
that's what,
never thought of it that way.
well, don't let it fuck you up, dude, because it makes me sick. It makes me absolutely nauseous. And yeah, I'll have to find, there was a TikTok I saw this guy describing it. It's just life is just a long, slow loss, man. And it's not a great way to look at things. It's not what my therapist would have me focusing on, I'm sure, but I can't help it, right? That's where my brain is. That's where it goes. That's the place it takes me when I'm laying in bed at night and I can't sleep. It's like, dude, you're never gonna see your kid crawl again.
Like,
You're never gonna.
th-
It's
but you're right. I mean, you're not wrong. You say don't think about it that way, but like my kids are daddy girls, right? Like, like they're really big into daddy. Like they love daddy. But my oldest is just turned 10, right? And the closer you get to the teens, you're gonna lose it, right?
yeah,
And that's gonna be sad, right? I remember when they
yeah,
walked and when they crawled, and like I have videos of it, and it still brings me joy to watch them. But like you said, it's a video. It's not a moment that you'll get back. And that's like
right.
every moment in our life. Um, like tomorrow, I don't know, like somebody saw your book on this video, and all of a sudden your book's like the best-selling thing. I don't know, like something crazy could happen, right? Um, but that'll be for that moment, right?
Right.
Like, is it going to be
And how do you look
continued?
at those moments, right? Because
Right.
when you put yourself in the shoes of who you were when you saw your baby walk for the first time, what were you focusing on? Were you thinking, oh my god, they're walking, or were you thinking, dude, they're not crawling anymore?
Or is it trouble?
Yeah, because I know for me, like, every time something new happens, I wasn't excited when my kid started kindergarten. It wasn't, yay, he's finally in kindergarten. It was, dude, he's fucked. He's fucking unfucked. This is it, you know?
I was scared, like what are they going to do with my kid, right? Like now it's out of my control, right? They
No,
go somewhere, I drop them off. I don't know if they're going to be okay. I don't know if they're going to break their arm on the monkey
right.
bars, right?
And if it was anything like me and my kid, man, you could see the systematic removal of the light in his eyes as he started kindergarten. He was in preschool for 2 years and he loved it. He was happy to go to school every day. Within a week of kindergarten, he was miserable. He hated it. You could literally just see the joy leaving his body as he became just another worker in society. Sit down,
Is
shut
that what it
up.
was? I mean, is that kind of like what it was, or was it kind of like um the kind of like the taking away of like well, the way I would look at it is you're home with dad, you go to preschool, it's more about like socializing, right?
Right.
Do you feel like it was I'm just generally curious because everybody
Sure.
has their different thoughts. Do you think that was a sign of like like a small wake up call, like this is what I'm gonna have to deal with for
Yeah,
like
I think it depends on the kid, depends on the school, depends on the teacher, right? There's a lot of
right,
factors,
right,
but
yeah.
I know for him, his kindergarten teacher was very structured. It was very much like, look, we sit down at our desk, we don't talk. I mean, he got in trouble for playing with a pencil. He got in trouble for looking around instead of looking at her. It's like, bro, he's 5, he's 6. Like he this world is going to crush the soul out of him. Why start now? You know? And it just I mean, I can be very much doom and gloom, clearly. Um,
Well,
but
sometimes
no,
you
I
got to
truly
be.
believe, yeah, I mean, I truly believe that because of the factors, right? The teacher, the school, him, whatever. Um, yeah, I believe that that first week, what school meant to him in his mind changed forever, right? School, as he knew it, fun, learning, but enrichment and socialization. Um, School doesn't mean that anymore. School means waking up early, getting in trouble, having kids pick on him, and then just wishing to be home. And that's going to be like that probably till he's done, right? Till he's 18.
Oh God, oh man, I think about that when I was in school, and uh, I don't know about you, but I skipped a lot. I wasn't the best student, right? And I hope my kids aren't like that. But it was like you stare at the clock, right? And it's like the hand goes slower, and you're like waiting for that 2:30, 3 o'clock when you get out of school, right? Or lunchtime, right? Just because you don't want to be in class. Is it because you want to be dumb? No, it's because there is a very strict plan of where to push you, right? And is that plan necessarily good for your your type of person, right? Like I'm a very hands-on learner, right? Like I need to put my hand on it. I need to do it. Like if my teacher will call me to the front of the room, have me write out a problem, I'd understand it. You give me a pen and you read from a book. No, like I want to get out of there as quickly as possible. I'll skip the next class because I don't want to deal with it, right? So uh, I really, I think that still comes to play.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think public school at its core, right? And I'm not as educated as I should be. But I think public school at its core is designed to create the society we're in. It's designed to feed low-level workers into the society who can work in the factories and the warehouses. And how could it be anything else, right? We're taught to diminish creativity, diminish creative problem solving, and we're taught instead to focus on busy work. I know you don't like math, but you're going to do math, right? That way, when we get into society, I know you don't like delivering Amazon packages, but that's what you're going to do. And you just had 18 years of doing what you don't like to do and doing it anyway. So now you know how to handle
yeah, oh man, yeah, like I'd feel bad if my kids had done like like go work in a factory, right? Like how amazing does that sound, right? That's not fulfilling, right? Man, I would hope for anybody to have something fulfilling, but the reality is that something fulfilling almost doesn't. You don't really. I'm trying. What would phrase it? Sometimes it doesn't come just because you're a hard worker, right? Sometimes it's timing, right? Like sometimes it happens to you. Like you get on a game show, you win $200,000. It happened to you, right? Like you didn't make that happen, right? It was a chance of luck, right? Like would I be here today without my mentors that I had that built me up to where I am today? I probably not, right? But I got lucky, right? And um, that wasn't a result of my education because I didn't go to college, and I think that's okay because I think college is a debt, and that's okay for me. I'm not going to explain that to my kids, but that's how I think, right? So, like if my kid were to tell me like I don't want to go to college, like okay, like your choice, like have some sort of plan, like if you want to work at Amazon the rest of your life, if you can pay for your bills, that's cool, like as long as you can support yourself and you can be somewhat happy. Like I want you to be happy. Of course, as a dad, you want your kids to have the most happiness as possible. But you know, it, a lot of the time, at least now, it is going to happen to you rather than it's like catching a break. Everything now is catching a break. You have to catch a break. And if you don't catch that break, then you don't get it. And that break is based on luck.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even what we're doing right here is an example of that, right? How much of um, our success as as individuals, right, depends on our ability to be magically seen by a bunch of other people, right? Crossing our fingers that someone notices us and cares enough, right? Um, Provided we're even doing something that's worth investing in, that's even worth people giving their time to us, right?
Right.
And we try to monetize our hobbies all the time, and that's another problem in and of itself. But it all comes down to us just trying to catch that right spark at the right time.
Right. And will it ever happen? Right. Like we could do this, like for example, for a year, right? And then a year from now, people seen clips and they're like, "Wow, this is great," and all of a sudden you get big, right? Or like I've been watching the viewer count. I see it go up, and then I see it go down. I see it go up, and it's like, okay, well, like maybe you didn't like this subject, and you're just like, cool, that's what the chat box is for. It's okay, you can chat to us, comment. Um, this is just the beginning, but the reality is we don't know if it'll go anywhere, but we like it as a creative outlet. Um, but is can I really make that popularity happen? And the answer is like maybe sure, like our personality might play an interest in it, right? But you think of all these people that got big, like these streamers that are out there, and there's one called Doctor that is in some serious hot water right now. But you think about all these people made it big, and it wasn't necessarily because you can watch people with one viewer and they're really good. And they deserve just as much recognition as this person. But somehow they got that stroke of luck that made them big. And it wasn't that they made it happen. It's something caught somebody's attention and then it went down a roller coaster and it sped up, right? And did they really like as they grew they got partnerships or whatever, but the initial thing, it happened. It was a stroke of luck because like now it's like you say streaming, it's like the other day that there's a statistic that there was over 100,000 people on Twitch with zero people watching, right? And it's like, wow, it's like, so why do you invest the time? And it's like, because you hope for that lucky break.
Yep.
I think
Yep. Well,
that's
if you're
okay.
like me, you're just crazy.
Well, for me, it's like, if I'm going to do it, like if I'm going to game, why not? Right? Like I have the software. I'm already talking to my friends through my equipment, right? Why not game and just do it live if somebody wants to enjoy it or see? Why not? Like if I get
Totally.
big, cool. Like if this podcast gets big, cool. If not, if it gets a decent following, I get to talk with Ty and we have some good discussions and it's like an outlet, right? And we get to talk about some of these things and it could be like almost like a second therapy session, but just, releasing it in a different format, and so you know, but when we get a break, no one knows, right? And it's really that stroke of luck. It's kind of like playing golf. It's like, are you gonna get a hole in one? Chances are very, very slim, but it can happen.
Crossing our fingers, man. But either
Yeah,
way, like you said, man, it's obviously a great topic. I think so many conversations like this happen. And not that everything in our lives has to be recorded. Obviously, that's the direction that our society's headed. Um, but I think that there are a lot of things that are lost in 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 time, right? Moments like conversations that you and I are going to have that just happen to be on a podcast instead of just on the phone,
right,
right? And like you said, if we connect with a bunch of people and they love it, great. If we connect with one person and they love it, great. If
right,
anything that we could say gives anybody any ounce of anything, then that's good.
right. It doesn't have to be the world, right? It can be five people. I mean, I'd be happy if I could help one person see something in a different light. That's okay. Um, And again, as we move through empty spaces, where I mean, today was kind of like delving deep into kind of like the psyche, I guess you can say, of people. Whereas in future, we could be talking about like the emptiness of space, like the emptiness of all the malls that are close, right? Like, talking about like closures, talking about, like there's so many things that are just like a void in the world because it's so big. You really can't control everything, and it's always going to feel small in perspective. So I mean, there's so many things that you can go into in that sense, I guess you could say. And I mean, comments. I mean, if you comment below, obviously we would love to talk about things that viewers bring to us. We would love to talk about those subjects, especially if you see us live. We're gonna be live every Monday at what did I say, Ty?
Oh, 11 hour time.
11 hour time, so that'd be 1 CST. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear you interact with chat. We would love to hear your opinions on what we're talking about and kind of take us in a new direction, right? This isn't just about us, right? Again, we talked today about a lot of people, their feelings, um, and we have different viewpoints maybe than you do, and that's okay, and we want to hear them, and we want to discuss, and like if you feel there's some kind of void that needs to be discussed, we want to hear that too. So we can talk about those things because ultimately this podcast, I don't want to say it's just for us. It's for a community as well because we don't just want to get everything off our chest. Like, sure, we do, but at the same time, we want it to be an outlet for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know that personally, saying things out loud has a lot of uh, therapeutic value, but so does being heard, right? So uh, it's just as important to me to know if somebody hears it than it is for me to just say it. Um, and I know personally, I get a lot of self worth out of helping others. I don't know if that's a great trait or not, but it is what it is. So, again, if we have an impact on one person, that's cool, you know.
Yeah, it's always good, right? And sometimes this might not be so delve deep into the psyche, right? Sometimes it can just be crazy space. So I don't know, but we look forward to diving deep into any subject. Like dark humor. We don't really care. This is an empty world, and we're trying to fill it, right? We're trying to fill your time with something that could relate to you in any way. And even if it doesn't, like you just want to talk about, like earlier I was talking about like string theorists and stuff. Like we can talk about stuff like that because the ideas are insane and they're interesting. So why not talk about it? Right. So um Ty, I mean, I think that's what I have for today. I mean, was there anything else you wanted to jab in there?
I think you covered it, man. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to this. I have some ideas rolling around in my head for some future topics. I definitely want to spend some time talking about the call of the void because that's something I struggle with. But like you said, fun stuff, right? Malls. That's that's
Dude, I
multiplexes,
watched a
right? I mean,
show
that's
on
crazy.
Hulu that was just about empty malls and empty places that used to have a lot of people, like an
Yeah,
island that used to have 100,000 people, and now has like 5 people living there. And it's just like a shell, but it's empty cell. And like malls you go into, like I don't know, it's a whole. Maybe I'll have to like find the show and share it with you, but um, yeah, it's crazy, like
I
just to
love it.
think about it. But
I love it, and I do think that I have maybe not the best advice in the world, right? But I have some unique experiences that I've gone through in my life that I would be thrilled if that experience were to help somebody else. So, diving into things like emptiness in relationships, addiction, struggles with depression, mental health, anxiety, OCD. Like, I don't want to. Nothing's off limits.
yeah, I think that's important that we that we say on this podcast is nothing is off limits. We're very open. And again, we want it to be very community driven. So, for sure. I mean, if you have something to say, and obviously, sometimes we may bring on guests, to go into deeper subjects with certain people. As time progresses, and we, get some people that are watching, and so forth. We would love to hear from others and get people on the show too, whether it just be a call in or maybe I bring your face up if you want to be seen. But I think this was a great first episode, Ty. We definitely got a little deep into like the human emotions, and again, check out Ty's book, even if you're just looking at it on Amazon. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel mad. It's on Amazon, and I honestly think it's a really great book that he released. So be sure to check that out. You can also find him. He's enjoyable still. You can watch him on Hand of Hate on Twitch, where he's playing games and just having fun outside of this. May have deep discussions on there too, but you'll find him on there, and you'll
Yes,
find
I will
us.
be live. I will be live in 10 minutes. Right
All
after this
right.
podcast, I'll be live on Twitch.
All right, and then of course, every Monday at 1 CST, we'll go live unless I was sleeping like I was today for some reason. But thank you so much for joining us. We'll be alive again next week on Monday, unless one of us something happens this bad. I hope not. But we'll be live, and we'll talk to you then. See you later, world.